Special Operations Training Detachment, SOD West, Burro Team. Coming at you from NTC, Off the Radar.
This is Off the Radar. I'm Captain Weston Rich, an observer coach trainer for the Green Berets at the National Training Center. Working by, with, and through partners is a central tenet of the Special Forces and Special Operations Forces. With the change in the national defense strategy from a focus on counterinsurgency to large-scale combat operations, SOF has expanded our aperture to recognize the necessity of integrating with the conventional force. With us to discuss the Special Operations Forces and Conventional Forces, integration, interoperability, and interdependence in large-scale conflict operations, SOF history, and the importance of family, woodworking, and any other thing that comes up in our conversation is Sergeant First Class Erik Gilgenast, the Special Operations Training Detachment, AOB West Sergeant Major, also known as Burro 40. So, Erik, please introduce yourself and give us just a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Erik Gilgenast. I am Burro 40, and I grew up in a military family. I'd always wanted to be in the military. Both my parents were in. My brothers served. My cousins are currently serving. So naturally, it's kind of family tradition. Lived all over the world. Lived in Japan. Lived in Germany. Colorado has always been home in my mind. And with my selection of 10th group, it took me right back there. And that's actually where my wife is from as well.
Okay.
So we met in sixth grade. And,
wow.
Just kept in contact there. And that was really one of my large drives going through the Q course and being successful was, getting back to her. So there's that.
That's a good drive.
I'm just about at 17 years. I was only in the infantry, for about 2.5, 3 years, roughly. Went to Afghanistan with 173rd. And then I, gotten stationed with 4th ID at Carson. So that was the first time getting out there, and that was also a request. While I was in Afghanistan, I remember hopping on the computer and talking to the branch manager. And collectively, or combined, I have 7 trips across the pond, and most of them have been CENTCOM oriented, even being a 10th grouper. I was lucky enough to get Africa early on as my first soft deployment, and then I've got a few European ones, but majority have been CENTCOM focused.
All right, so Colorado is your home. Had some time there as a growing up, and then 4th ID, and then back to 10th group.
Yep.
Mentioned having a wife who you met at a young age, and just that was your motivation to get through the Q course and get back to Colorado. So, like, family, I know, is a huge thing, and you have had a big sacrifice being out here through a couple different roles on Burro Team, but for the most part, our Sergeant Major. And the whole time your family stayed in Colorado. So, like, how hard is it to work here while your family's away?
If you keep yourself occupied, I will say that you're okay. It is mind numbing at times because you just want to see your kids. You want to hold your kids. You want to be with your wife. You want to go to those evening dinners or pick your kids up from school or just be there to play with them and just be present, be in the moment with your children. I think when I would mentally go down the rabbit hole of like, why am I here? And knowing what my mission is as a soldier, but also knowing, what capacity I'm giving up, as a father, not being there for my kids. Like there's a void. Mm-hmm. And, my wife and I talked about it ad nauseum of just, when I get the chance, FaceTime the girls, FaceTime the kids. What we started to do was read books, and I'd record myself on my phone and I'd send it. And then there's a little toy box machine that, my kids can go open and just push the button and hear my voice, and I can, read a story to them, based off of the recording that I've got. But it's difficult. It's not easy at all. If I'm being totally honest, I would never do it again, but just keeping your head in the game and staying focused is really what got me through this. And then knowing that my wife supported me through it all. So that it's, I would not recommend somebody to do it if they didn't have to. But if you're in a precarious situation where you do live in a nice house, you have renovated that house, you spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on that house, which is my current situation. I've also got my woodworking business and my own personal shop, and I've come a long way. My wife and I have come a long way with that house, and it was not something that we wanted to give up. And so it was, hey, we're either going to go to Fort Irwin and we're going to live in on-post housing. They're going to take all of our BAH, or I can take this money from reenlistment and I can go out and buy a camper and I can go suffer on the pad and just ride the lightning. And so that's where we are.
Well, you aren't the only one that's been geo-bacheloring while I've been here, but I think the great thing about the Burro team is that even when somebody is alone out here without their family, the team kind of binds together.
Absolutely.
And we have a really good unit culture. But from my point of view, you've done a great job, talking to the soldiers of Burro team and trying to like, hey, if your family's here, get some time with them. If your family's not here, like, this is the calendar. We know you're going to be busy during rotation. Outside of that, you better cut out and go visit your family. And it's definitely been seen. And we appreciate that your predecessor, Steve Connor, and yourself and the officers in charge of Burro team have been taking care of the men and women and making sure that they have time to cut away with their families.
Yep.
But we'll get back into that maybe at the end. You did have a little bit of time as the ops sergeant before filling in as the sergeant major of Burro team. So like, let's just talk about each one of those. What's the overall, like, really fast duties, responsibilities of each position?
The operations sergeant. I think that is what is going to prepare you most to be a team sergeant out here if you haven't been one already. And if you look at the historics of the Burro detachment, there was E8s here when I showed up. Now all those E8s are retiring, and for some reason there's no backfill, but you hit the ground running. These positions are supposed to be post-KD complete team sergeants, post-KD complete sergeant major. All the officers are post-command time. That's what they're supposed to be, but for some reason we can't get it. So you gotta learn as you go. But as the operations sergeant, I mean, you are responsible for everything that is going on in those FUOPs. You are managing your guys, you're managing the guest OCs, you're managing the scenario to a point based off of who you're working with. I mean, that's for any OC going on. But the operations sergeant kind of has the most unique job. He's overseeing 3 additional, quote unquote team sergeants for the field teams that are also E8 positions. And you're kind of playing like an AOB ops sergeant in that position. And so everything that is going on, whether it's a red SOF ODA, whether it's a blue SOF ODA, whether it is the AOB, whether, it's a division rotation and you actually have a battalion and brigade and an L&O package, as the operations sergeant, you're looking at all of that. And you're putting, words to action and making sure that rotation is going as smoothly as it possibly can. It was mind numbing at first because I'd never been a team sergeant.
Yeah.
I'd been a assistant ops sergeant at most on the B team, for ASC 10th group. But I'd never experienced anything like that. And it was a humbling experience because the amount of stuff that was going on, I couldn't keep up with. It's one of those positions where you have to keep a notebook, you have to take good notes, you have to take clear notes, and you actually have to go down and say, okay, is this done? How do I execute this? Almost like a Carnell note type of setup where you're drawing a line down the middle of that page and it's like, okay, this is the problem.
Yep.
How do I solve this problem?
Yeah.
And every single day in that rotation, you have people coming up to you saying, I need this. The guys don't have that. Oops, there was a mistake in the scenario here. How do we make this happen? Hey, this cache plan doesn't work.
Yep.
And it is just nonstop. So you have to kind of pick and choose what is most important to keep that scenario going, while at the same time managing your guys and making sure they're not getting tracer burnout.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest things that I see here at the Burro Det. For the size rotations that they want to push out, we don't have the manpower to effectively, do this, where guys are just, they're not getting a lot of time. I mean, most of these guys are working 24 on, 24 off, and that 24 on is more like 27 on.
Yeah.
And then, they get to go home, get some sleep, and that time that they have off is just so limited.
Yeah.
And then they're jumping right back in the saddle, and then they're getting their brief for what's going on, and they're right back out the door. We have equipment failures. We have issues with the RTUs. We have guys that end up having to leave, for medical reasons, or their wives are pregnant, and even guest OCs that come out. We've had guys that get sent out here, and they're like retiring in like a month, and it's like, well, why are you out here? And they're like, oh, I wanted to help out the boys, and so, the operations sergeant is just doing everything, coup ops.
Yep.
That is,
ops,
current ops. That's, and just making sure everything is just going as it needs to be, and just solving that problem. They're a problem solver. I mean, that's really what they are, is a problem solver. But my time was short-lived, and then ended up, moving in that 40 position, and then it was that was probably the most dramatic change I've had to deal with.
Let's talk about that. What's the 40s role?
So, I will say that there are some nuances that, as the ops sergeant, I could take back there and continue on as the 40. But it was a dramatic change.
Yep.
The people that I had to talk to, all the other, sergeants majors here on NTC, sergeants majors from the SF side.
Yep.
And then, I'm still in E7, it's difficult to walk into a room with a bunch of battalion and brigade level CSMs, especially big Army ones, because big Army operates differently than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go up and talk and articulate the same way that they are on what's actually happening in the SOF CFI3 LISCO multi-domain environment.
Yep.
And, really sell yourself of like, hey, this is what SOF can do. This is what SOF can't do. This is what SOF won't do. And hey, we might be willing to do this if things fall into place, if we have the time for that.
Yeah.
But I will say that you'd be surprised how many people are still kind of in the GWAP mindset with SF, and they think that we're a bunch of spooky guys that live in the shadows, that just grow beards, and we look cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Yeah, I think whoever told you that, or whatever your thought process was of that, is totally wrong. And then you start going down the actual mission set of what we are capable of and what we can do. And I think one of the biggest educating points here, example that I commonly use, and I think I've brought it up with you in the past, is, hey, can a SOF team that does special reconnaissance go out and harass this tank? And it's like, no, we're not scouts. We're not going to go out and harass a tank.
Yeah, not good use of SOF forces.
Misuse and misallocation of forces. It's just not. It's not going to work out. And I try to be as respectful as I can when I give that example.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like people are like, oh, okay.
I thought you were going to bring up the 5988s.
Yeah.
on the 40 net calls and stuff. Like, everybody has, like, each team here at NTC is focused on a specific type of unit or warfighting function. So, like, Burro is special operations, and there's ones that are focused on sustainment. So they obviously care a lot about maintenance and the maintenance procedures and things like that. So it's easy for them to get long-winded on the radio about how the conventional forces not maintaining their vehicles properly. And that is hugely important. But in our little slice of the LISCO pie, we don't have that many vehicles. We don't have that much equipment. Our maintenance is usually pretty good, and we're just trying to be out doing tactical things to support maneuver.
Yeah. Another example there too is the SFABs.
Yeah.
We've had numerous questions arise where, hey, can the SFAB get attached to this ODA? And it's like, well, hey, if we're working in the division and the Corps deep, SFAB is not going to be attached to us. SFAB is not going to be out there working with us. Those teams got to be as small as possible. They got to be a blip on the radar at most. That footprint that they're leaving, you don't want to taint that with additional forces. And it's just, it's not to belittle the SFAB in any way, shape, or form, but
No.
it's the conversation of like, do you really understand what we do? And do you understand what you do?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a tough conversation the first time I had to do that. But I got through it and being as professional as I possibly could. And I had to make a dramatic change moving to that 40 spot. I could not be the E7 bull in the china shop, yelling at guys, cursing, this way, that way, and saying this needs to get done. It's a very cordial, professional conversation amongst NCOs and officers of like, this is what we do. And I'm sorry, we can't do this because of this.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, a tenet of being special operations. You have to understand your operational environment.
Exactly.
And know the people that you're working around and with.
Yeah.
So you're talking about changing the way that you led to extend influence beyond the Burro detachment.
Yeah.
And you're fighting an uphill battle as an E7 talking to E9s.
Yeah.
But through building rapport and credibility, then they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, I witnessed that from my seat, watching you, listening to you talk to the other sergeant majors, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge difference between the ops sergeant and the sergeant major position. The ops sergeant he's focused down and in on the rotation, working with the SOF rotational unit, all of the guest OCs and everybody else that's there to support the rotation. And the sergeant major can dip his hands in the rotation stuff, but is really doing the backside support of the rotation.
Yeah.
And that includes a lot of coordination with ops group, which gives you a unique position to extend influence and do that soft CF I3 to the other permanent party here on NTC. And I've witnessed you expand people's perception of SOF and understanding of it just through formal and informal like engagements at meetings, outside of meetings.
Yeah.
And then, cursory interactions I may have had with some of those people, their perspective over the last year about what SOF can and can't do has, dramatically changed.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like from Major Ficken, from Major Song, like interacting and spreading the good word of like, this is how USASOC says SOF is going to operate during large-scale conflict.
Yeah. I think I realized rather quickly the level that we actually work at as Green Berets during the RCS radio updates.
Okay.
And I bring this up because, like you were saying, you have the sustainment packages, you have the airborne infantry, you have the tankers, you have, whatever element comes out here, they are working on their specific metal tasks and what they have to do to accomplish the mission. And on this RCS radio, this is, this morning sync that the Force Comm Sergeant Majors do. I have since stepped away from those because it happens at the same time that we're doing our morning syncs.
Yeah.
And it, I can't be pulled in two directions. So I'm going to take what's right in front of me and what's most important, and then I can get that information on the backside. But the few that I attended, you sit there and you listen to what they're saying. And just as you brought up, hey, does, this unit have their 5988s done? How's that maintenance going? What's the supply chain look like? Or, hey, these tankers, are they bore sighting, their Bradleys and their Abrams and all that other stuff? And hey, what's the infantry doing over here? And they were very specific about these tasks. I mean, it seemed like it was almost black and white.
Yep.
And when it came time for me to give my spiel, I think I spoke for probably about 2 or 3 minutes longer. And it was everything from, hey, these teams are doing, this. This is what is going to be happening in the future. This specific team is out here doing this, and they're setting up a network so that in the event that there is a casualty, they have prolonged field care capabilities, and they have a network that they can actually move men, weapons, and equipment to location X, both in and out, or what it is. But I got very into what I was saying, and then it was almost kind of like crickets on the other end. Yeah. And it was like, okay, hey, I'm complete. And it was like, hey, Roger, Burro, that's a great update. And then I realized that maybe it was the way that I said it, or maybe acronyms, but I think they kind of grasped like, holy crap, this guy is overseeing all of this going on.
Yeah.
And it is not just this one thing that they're focusing on. It is a very broad spectrum of irregular warfare and everything that's going on, and that would go on in a LSCO fight that we are trying to prepare for.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, my cue of, wow, like this is what we're doing, and like we really have some serious value here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because the conventional brigade, because we almost always do brigade rotations minus the Division 1, has, a couple thousand soldiers, and they're out there generally, and they're only in the box, and they're all arrayed in the vicinity or within, 10, 20 kilometers of the front line of troops. So all of the maintenance, all of the supply, all of the fires and everything they have is, within this relatively small space.
Yeah.
And we have SF teams out in the deep.
Yep.
We have civil affairs teams doing civil reconnaissance all over the place, and PSYOP teams doing whatever, if they can do key leader engagements, working in the information space. And we usually have an AOB, an SF company, and 2 ODAs, and then those civil affairs PSYOPs and a couple other people. So we have like maybe 100 RSOF soldiers at a rotation, plus their partner force, and then they're leveraging the local population, and they're bringing mass, and they're hitting all of the domains and just doing everything they possibly can inside the brigade's footprint, inside their area of operations, in the division, in the core area. So like the battle space for us as a way smaller unit is much more geographically taxing.
Yeah.
And it's just, hey, Burro 40, I'm understanding all these different pieces across the entire Southwest region, because almost every time we have people operating outside of the box in Nevada, in other parts of California.
Yep.
Sometimes they go to Arizona.
If we look at the actual square miles of what's on NTC versus what our RMT lanes or realistic military training lanes allow, I mapped it out on Onyx and actually drew the lines, and hey, and it might be skewed just a little bit because it was straight lines and I didn't draw it perfectly. But within the box, I think it's like 16,000 square miles, something like that, something close to that. If you look at the RMT lanes and everything that we're able to reach with those lanes, it's roughly 72,500 square miles of play area that we have, where units can go and coordinate and set up and say, hey, that we want to try this over here, or we want to do this, and then as long as things match up, we're good to go.
Yeah. So I don't know, 4.5 times ish.
Yeah.
The space.
Yeah.
So when you were Lop Sergeant, you definitely got out and interacted with the training unit AOB, and were the actual one of the OCs. And then as the Sergeant Major, you still have the right to be out there. I don't think you've gotten out as much as you probably would like to see training units, but like, what are some typical things you helped coach AOB staffs and the NCOs specifically on?
The analog products has always been a big one.
Okay.
And the reason for this is, if we're talking, real world LSCO, if this actually happens, you cannot always rely on a computer. You're not always going to be able to rely on a cell phone. You're probably not even going to want that out there. That footprint, that digital footprint that's out there it's scary what people can see. So if it's an electronic, I would caution that real world, be very choosy about what you use.
Yeah.
But if you're going to put all your products for mission planning on a computer that can, get blown up, get cracked, broken, dropped, in whatever, you're going to fail. You're going to lose everything that you worked for. So the things that I would harp on to the sergeants majors that came out here to train was analog products. Where is your log stat? Where is your commander's decision matrix? Where is your HPIDL? Where is it's a whole list of things that you can go down. And occasionally, you get a few that were like, oh, hey, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'd get the, hey, it's on the computer.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, hey, what happens when this happens? And there's a big part of me where, even though I'm not, doing the ops sergeant position, I'm just trying to kind of give that push to say, hey, you might want to start doing this, because here in the next 24 to 48 hours, it's going to get real and you're not going to have any time. And then you're going to try to go back and make this analog product and it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah. You notice like a big shift in pre-infill versus after infill?
Yes. There is a mega shift. Everything is digital right there. When they're in the Aruba and they're getting ready to infill and they're doing their back briefs and they're, trying to sell themselves like, hey, here's what we're going to be doing, you're getting holes punched in their plans and stuff, and they got to go back and refine. You see all this stuff on the digital side.
Yeah.
When a company, AOB or any of the ODAs have really taken the time to knuckle down on this, when you see them set up, they have their digital side.
Yep.
And then they take everything from those digital products and they transfer it to the analog products and they set up a roving OPSEN.
Yeah.
Or they look at how their patrol base is going to be, with the equipment they have. They're doing their equipment shakeout and they're setting up their radios and they're doing their commo checks. And then they have their quick boards for all their analog products that they can literally fold up, stuff away real quick. And if they get blown out, they can literally grab it and go.
Yeah.
You see a dramatic shift. And then when they actually get out there, you start to see them realize what is important and what they can live without and how they can, work on certain things without having all the Gucci stuff. And I think that's really where we excel as special operations guys, is we adapt to our environment, we learn our operational environment, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to, suck a little bit here, but I can make this happen. And then it just becomes second nature. And you see these guys just like fluid. I mean, they're writing out their products, they're planning on a whim. And, that computer ends up just being a thing for a sit rep.
Yeah. So, and I mean, in my opinion, you plan faster on paper.
Yeah.
On a map, I get bogged down in trying to make it perfectly formatted before I really get into what I'm trying to do on a computer. So I think most people, computer's great for communication, but you can explain a little bit over radio if you need to.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the old Ranger Handbook OPORD methodology.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's very applicable to what is going on out here.
Well, like when I was OCing teams, it seemed like and I'm also guilty of this when I was on a team. Be like, all right, we're going to infill. Here's all the infill stuff, digital. Here's a plan, back brief to the commander, approved. We go infill. All right, we're just going to do TLPs, which or troop leading procedures, which really doesn't not actually following all the steps. And you're kind of just like, all right, Junior Charlie, you're leading this patrol. You know how to do the troop leading procedures, right? You did them at SUT or small unit tactics. It's like, yeah, he did them when he was stressed, and he did let's help him out. Let's pull out the Ranger Handbook and go through the steps. Teams sometimes need to be coached on make a sand table. Sometimes they don't, and that just helps everybody visualize what's going on.
Yeah. I think at this point in our careers, we definitely know what a good plan looks like and what a good sand table looks like, and where the effort has been put in. I mean, I think most senior people can see that, and then you can see where people are half-assing it. But yeah, I mean, you see everything out here. You really do. You see everything, and I think if you're a young E7, or even if you're an E6, coming out here is only going to enhance your capability and make you better at what you do, and just allow you to see, what is happening across the regiment. You see every single group. You see a ton of ODAs.
Yep.
You see different command teams, their philosophy, how they lead, how they want to fight, and you just every rotation you are. I guess the best way I could put it is it's almost like you have a tool bag. At NTC, you have a toolbox, and that unit is leaving a tool bag for you to just grab and throw in your own box.
Yeah,
it's priceless what you learn out here.
Lots of lessons learned. So what is a success story or something that you've seen a team or an ODA, or excuse me, an AOB do really well?
I will give a huge shout out to 5th Group.
Okay.
It was my first rotation as the operations sergeant, and 5th Group came out here and they crushed it. They came out here prepared. They came out here open-minded. I didn't hear a single NCO or officer complain about anything. They were in it to win it. They were filthy. They were completely caked in just dirt and grime, diesel fuel, oil. Their vehicles went down. They got them back up. they had guys that were actively, in the process of getting out of the Army. And I didn't know any of those guys were getting out until, towards the end of the rotation. And the guy was like, yeah, man, this is it. I'm just here to help out the guys, as we talked about before. And just doing the senior Bravo thing one last time. And then as soon as I get back, I'm heading to the house,
Yeah.
And I was super impressed. And I think my first rotation was probably one of the best rotations that I've seen. And I'm not saying that, there wasn't success from the other groups and all that, but 5th group definitely crushed it.
Yeah.
And they had a great command team backing them. And all the way to the very end, they were in role and they just owned it.
Yeah.
All the way through.
I think mentality is huge. And it's something that, at times people can struggle with. Like, yeah, it's a rotation. And like maybe you've done NTC or JRTC when you were a lieutenant or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, or a junior soldier. And you were like, man, that stunk. I don't want to do that. And like, no, like training is what you make of it. Wherever you do your training, but like you can get a lot done in the 10 to 14 days that you're out in the box here.
Absolutely. The other thing too, I think that really made the success overall was the commander and sergeants major were out just as dirty, just as nasty as all the other guys. The sergeant major was actively setting up sectors of fire in the AOB's, perimeter.
Okay.
And when
somebody's got to do it.
Exactly.
Preferably, maybe like the Bravo
but it'd be so easy, for that sergeant major to say, "Hey, Bravo, go take care of this." And it was like, no, that sergeant major was like, "Absolutely not. I'm owning this." And he went out there, and then it was like he had a moment of clarity because per the scenario that the NBC, chem threat was out there, and he looked around, and I'm standing next to him, and he's like, "Wind's blowing this way. If we get a chem tac, we need to move over here." And he went and he disseminated that to everybody. Nobody came off of the gun positions. He didn't even get on a radio. He walked to every single position and said, "This is the point that we are going to move to in the event that there was a chemical attack."
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this guy is just on it. And it was just a great example of something for me to follow. And I mean, I didn't even say anything as an OC. I just sat there and in my head, I'm like, this guy is awesome. Their commander was phenomenal. He was constantly in his FLA kind of roving opsin. And I think once he grasped what was going on, everything that he did was with the mindset of, how do I enable my ODAs to go and crush the enemy? What are we allowing them to do? And it didn't matter if it was ISR. He would push ISR to his detachments. He didn't keep it for himself. He wasn't like, hey, I need to see what, like, he might have had a flyover and say, hey, can you just do a quick glance at what's going on here? And then I need you to beat feet over here to support these detachments. And that's the way he ran it. And then when it came to fires, it was, he was the point in that chain where it was like, approved. We're going to send this up, and all of a sudden all the fires missions were just going out to the ODAs. I think at the end of that rotation, out of over 100 plus targets that were, constructive in the box, 5th group had knocked out probably 80 something targets at the end of that. And they did it right. They just did it right. True success story right there.
All right. Well, quite the story. So if you're listening, hopefully you can come out and match that. But like, I like it's a basic thing, but somebody has to own security. And I've had conversations with detachments like, you got to figure out security. You can be 100% tactical. You can get in a patrol-based triangle, and you can do that. Depending on your environment, like maybe you can do something else. Like just think about it. What makes the most sense? Like maybe terrain doesn't, allow you to do a triangle shape, or maybe you got vehicles and you can strong point, or whatever the case is. But like you need to go through that, and you need to have a base defense plan, and you need to do the fundamental things. And that should be things that are trained on prior to coming out here, so that the
basics matter.
That everybody on the detachment I know what this is, and I know what to do when we stop. And then the command team, whether that's the detachment or the company level, like they're thinking about a whole plethora of different things. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this discussion with Erik Gilgenast. Next episode, we will discuss Special Forces history, work-life balance, and how a hobby can make you a better soldier and leader. Thank you for listening to Off the Radar, where our SOF prepares for conflict. Like,
subscribe, and share on your listening platform. Actions will determine the outcome.